Welcome out, Army fans. This is Joe Iacano with GoBlackKnights.com. Tonight, we have the privilege of interviewing two West Point grads and huge Army football fans, John Griffiths and Monty Bradford. So we're excited. We got three old grads talking Army football. This is going to be a lot of fun tonight. Welcome out, guys. Thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. Why don't we start off, John? Give the fans out there some of your vitals, if you will.
Thank you, Joe. My name is John Griffiths. That's actually my name and my screen name on GBK. And I've been a fan of Army football all my life, especially since obviously attending the academy. I'm a class of 1988. Very proud of my class. We've done very well. We've got a governor. We've got a couple four-star generals now. Been very, very pleased to follow the team. Really started engaging a lot and following the team probably about a year before Coach Monken got hired. And it has been a sweet, sweet ride. And just really entertaining for me as a fan to watch and see how he and the academy have worked to build, what's feeling a little bit like a mini dynasty to me, at least. And I'm just really happy that the timing was right for me at the time of my life when I started really getting engaged again. I live in Washington, D.C. I work at the Pentagon. Moved here a year and a half ago. I'll be here for at least another year and a half, and maybe I'll stay. But some of the other folks have seen me post on the 12th night might remember me as being from California, and that's where I've lived most of the time since 1997, actually.
It's good stuff, John. I know, the thing I always remember about John, besides the fact that he has really good analytical, well thought out posts, I think, and has some great information on the recruiting. Sometimes knows some stuff even before we do, which is pretty impressive. But always like John's John Wayne avatar, big fan of that on the website. So that's good stuff. So Monty, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to GoBlackKnights.com Nation.
Well, thank you for having me on, Joe. Monty Bradford, I'm a class of 1983. So I'm the old timer on this call. I've lived in New Jersey now for probably 25 years. Originally grew up in Colorado. And I've been an Army fan since before I attended the academy. Mostly once I knew, probably freshman year in high school, that's where I wanted to go after having seen an assembly with West Point Cadet speaking. I started following the team, so I've been following the team a good many years, but I have to say football has never been better than it has been under Coach Monken. It's been a great ride, as John said, and I just absolutely love it. There isn't anything more I'd rather do than attend a home football game, and because I'm only about an hour and 20 minutes away from Mikey, I've been a season ticket holder for a good many years. I tend to go to the Army-Navy game mostly as well. I will be there again this year with my family, and I'm looking forward actually even next year up in Massachusetts. That's a reasonable commute as well. Yep. But I'm just so proud of this team and the players, and I couldn't be prouder, at this stage to be an Army football fan.
Yeah, it is a really good time to be an Army fan the last 8-9 years since Jeff Monken took over as the head coach. Especially once he got his own players in and starting in about year 3, really, John labeled it a mini dynasty. It's true. I know a Bama fan might laugh at us for saying that, but when you crank up as many wins as Army has the last 8 years and compare it to what they'd done really previous to the last time they had a run even close to this was in the 80s. When we were all in school, it's pretty funny. We're split out pretty well. We got 83, 88, 93. So split out 10 years. And Monty, you were there kind of at the beginning of the Jim Young era and the beginning of the first rebirth of Army football. Got to see that through all 4 of your years. And then John, being class of 88, you got to see, I guess, a really good or no, you would have graduated right before the Sun Bowl team, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because I knew that was 88. I was trying to do the math in my head and I got messed up, but still saw some really great teams with Ben Barnett and I guess was Mike Mayweather there when you were there? Did he start after you left?
He was there. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so he was obviously one of the best running backs we've ever had. I think he was a Heisman semifinalist, if not a finalist. So pretty impressive stuff. And that was really, the last really great run we saw at Army, and then kind of went through the dark ages there until Coach Monken got hired. So, Monty, I'm going to ask you this, since you are the senior member of the group here, the senior officer of the crew. When you were a cadet, kind of, I know you said you became an Army fan when you were a freshman in high school and started following them pretty religiously at that point, I guess. But when you were a cadet, what was your kind of first memory of Army football, and what really excited you about being at West Point and getting to see the team up close and personal?
Just the experience at Mikey, with the core marching up to the stadium, and I really did look forward. We weren't all that good when I was there. I think we tied Navy once and we never beat them. So that was
rough.
Yeah, it was disappointing. And when we went to the Rose Bowl, I didn't actually get to go to that game because I was on the rifle team and we had a match that Saturday. So the one time that would have been kind of cool, probably will never happen again. I didn't get to go to that game, but yeah, so there were a lot of disappointments, but I still was a hardcore fan and went to every game, and I have no regrets over that. And the Mikey experience is really even much better now, because success breeds success, and people want to actually attend the games, and the stadium can be sold out often, and it just it's just a fun. There's no better place to watch football game than Mikey, but yeah, it was a little bit lean when I was there, for sure. A lot of disappointments. And I remember thinking, even when I was going with my wife, when we weren't before Coach Monk, and just the size of our team relative to the competition was quite markedly different. And I used to think, wow, we look like a high school football team playing a NFL team. That's not the case anymore. But back then we had a difficult time recruiting what I call Division I caliber, players, it seemed like. So.
Absolutely. It's funny. I remember my grandfather, who was a, big Army fan, because he's a World War II bomber pilot, B-26 pilot, and played some high school ball and coached high school football for a long time, watching an Army game with him back in either the Ross or the Ellerson era. And he's like, gosh, Joe, these players are like the same size that we were back in the 40s and 50s. I mean, you're not going to compete in the year 2010 doing that. I remember watching Georgia Southern when Coach Monken was there, actually, in 2013, compete for the FCS championship. I think they made it to the semifinals in 2012 and got beat. And I'm sitting, I come from a family of coaches, have a lot of friends who are coaches, everything else. And we're sitting there in our living room watching the Georgia Southern game. And it was on, I think the semis were on the same day as the Army Navy game or close to it. And, John, this friend of mine named John, who's is an AD at one of the local high schools in Central Jersey, actually, at the time, Monty, looked at me and said, Georgia Southern's 1AA, but they have way better talent than Army does right now. And that was not an exaggeration, right? With some of the talent Monken was bringing in at the time in 1AA, had a couple NFL guys on those squads. So, John, kind of want to kick it over to you now. You talked about, you kind of started getting involved again in Army football and following them kind of a year or two before Coach Monken took over. So talk a little bit about kind of what got you back into Army football, kind of what your feelings were during that time. And then, as we transition from Coach Ellerson to Coach Monken, talk about that period and kind of how exciting that was for you. And really, be honest with me. Did you see, maybe not this level of success, but did you know the fortunes were starting to turn around once General Caslin made the decision to hire Coach Monken?
Sure. Well, I actually started getting engaged again 2013. I had a 25th reunion and went to back to the academy, and we attended the football game. I remember we played Morgan State at Mikey Stadium and actually beat them, which was nice.
Yeah.
But that was still the Rich Ellerson era. And I remember being disappointed later that year. We didn't win the Army-Navy game again. And then very excited when we made the decision to hire Coach Monken, and then really started dialing in. And Go Black Knights actually made that really easy to do, to follow the team and get a lot of inside information. So it essentially became my one personal hobby outside of family and work. And it became all consuming, and I consumed everything. I watched all the games, and I watched the interviews. And even though those first 2 years it was pretty tough, and there were some heartbreaking losses, and then even some hard fought victories. I remember we beat UConn at Yankee Stadium early on in the Monken era. But I have to say, even in that very, very difficult season where we just won a couple games, I think it was Coach Monken's second season, I could see the turnaround happening. And I think those of us that were watching closely and could feel the leadership and the motivation and ethic and attitude of the team turning around. And it didn't translate right away into wins and losses, but you could feel the change happening. And then I guess that third season, I think we won our opener on the road at Temple. And then it was like, oh, now we're getting somewhere. Temple was pretty good that season, actually. And we went to a bowl that year, and that was the beginning of going back to bowl games and winning bowl games. And I just couldn't look away. It was such an amazing story. I think watching the recruiting happening. I started. Joe, you remember me having inside info about recruiting, but all I was doing was just watching Twitter, and sort of being lucky, seeing people announce commitments and posting them to the 12th night. It's really exciting. And as you know, there's so much goes into a FBS level program, much less a winning FBS program, that there's just no end of things to learn about. I feel like a very educated Army fan now when I talk to my friends.
You are,
and still,
trust me.
I know that there's a lot that I do not know. And if you're somebody that's an information sponge, like I am, it's just been super rewarding because I've learned a lot, and I just feel all these psychic rewards from kind of participating really in the success of the program and the team as a fan, and as a very well-informed fan. So I'm hooked. I'm really hooked. And I have seasons tickets at home this year. Nice. Even though I live in DC, it's a lot closer than I was in California. So I'm making the trip, and I'm going to the season opener this year. Just super excited about the program.
That's good stuff. Yeah, you're kind of in a good location there. You can go to 3-4 hours from the home games, and then probably 3-4 hours from Myrtle Beach and Coastal. So that's kind of nice. Yeah, I'm with you, John. Absolutely. I mean, I remember, when Army hired Coach Monken, I was super excited. I remember the day General Caslin, I think it was the day after the Navy game in 2013, when he came on Facebook and basically apologized to all the old grads. And I was like, that's a classy guy. And he came out and he did what he had to do and fire Coach Ellerson. You never want to see anybody get fired. I understand that. I mean, I'm sure Rich Ellerson's a great guy, but it was time to make a change. And, I remember saying that day, I literally posted on Facebook below that message. I said, I didn't even know Monken's name, but I said, good, now go hire the guy from Georgia Southern. And so it was pretty cool. So, and then like you said, like starting to get caught up in the program and knowing things were turning around, that 2-10 season, I was like, man, they're this close. Like you could tell, like there were so many games that it was like, one play. I remember specifically that year going into Penn State with AJ Schur at quarterback, and we lose 7 fumbles and still only lose to Penn State by 1 score. I mean, in Happy Valley, I was like, all right, this is a different team. Like, this is crazy. So the next year I was like, man, where do you find recruiting information? Because like, right, at the academies keep the recruits super secret because of the government stuff and everything. And I'm like, where do you get good recruiting info on Army? I need to know who we're going after. And lo and behold, stumbled across goblacknights.com, became a 12th night member right out of the gate, and really enjoyed the insight from some of the fans like you guys. So Monty, how about you? When did you start to realize that, I know you've been a diehard Army fan your whole life, but kind of, with Coach Monken coming in and turn around to the program, when did you kind of start to realize things were going to be different and kind of follow the program maybe a little more closely? And how long have you been a 12th night member?
Well, first of all, I was amazed. I watched when he introduced himself, Coach Monken, and the poise that he has and the words that he uses they're just perfection. I cannot imagine a better Army coach than the one that we have right now. And I hope there's some kind of a memorial or statue when he finally decides to retire, which I hope isn't for a very long time. But so I was very encouraged. You could tell there was a big cultural change that he was affecting, and it was much needed. And in fact, I had seen Alidin Weba interviewed and said it was kind of a joke with those guys culturally. They didn't expect to win. So he had a lot of work to try to change the mindset of people to get from a losing and you don't care or we're never going to win attitude into we know that we can win and we want to win. My concern at the time was that there would be enough patience on the part of Army leadership to give him an honest go at it, because I got nervous after we had that 2-win season under him.
Yep.
Like, oh geez, I hope so anyway, then it was like dramatic. After we got through that, we really saw some success, and now of course it's in the books in terms of him being one of the very best of all time, and I hope he's just getting started. As far as how long I've been a member, but to be honest, I don't know. It's been a good number of years. I don't even remember, to be honest, how I came across it, but it's fantastic, and I'm just so happy that the organization exists. I'm glad that they brought you on as an interview. There's so many interviews now that are just so intriguing and fun and informative, and I'm very, very happy to be a member and on the receiving end of all the good information. I also like all of the the back and forth among the members. Like John, I don't know you, but I saw all of your posts, a lot of your posts, and they're just some of them were just amazing. So I know there's just so much time and effort that people will put into the research, and then just to share that with everybody is just it's amazing.
Yeah, whoever that no fancy name guy is. I think he just sits in front of his computer all day.
Oh my God.
I'm highly impressed with the data that guy comes up with.
Yeah, I was going to say you have to get him on because I want to know who that is.
I think he's like, I don't think that's what I don't know if he's a real human. I think he's like a cyborg.
AI.
Those bots. He like shoots out information.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for, there to be any kind of inaccuracy or misinformation in any of his posts. They're like so well informed.
Yeah, that's pretty good stuff. No, it's you mentioned the word, Monty, culture, and I think more than anything, it's funny, we've had other triple option coaches in Army, right? So I don't think Monken's offense is the secret. I will say, kind of what's the like cliche around leaders and reading, like not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers.
Yeah.
Not all triple option coaches have been successful at Army. But to be successful at Army, you do have to run the triple option. Nobody can convince me otherwise.
Yeah.
But I think that's just one piece of it, right? Some guys have said, for example, and you guys might even know the stats of this better than I do, but the years we've had the best defenses is really when we've been the most successful because we play that complementary defense. I remember Coach Monken saying in a presser about a month ago that over the last 3 years or 5 years, something like that, we've taken 500 less defensive snaps than any other program in college football. So the offense, there's clearly a system there and it works, right? I mean, I'm not saying the defense is a lot better than it used to be, no doubt about it. But I think if you put this defense with a Chip Kelly or Jamie Chadwell type offense, it might be a different story than what we're seeing with Monken's ground and pound and playing keep away and the whole system there. So, but you talked about culture, and I think that's when I talked to Terry Baggett and interviewed him. He said the 2014 season was the most miserable year of his life because he said he could tell the program was turning around, but he said he was injured and sore literally the entire year because Monken worked those guys so hard just to change the culture. And what's cool now to me as an interviewer is whether I'm talking to Connor Bishop or Marquel Broughton or Ijon Marshall or name your player or assistant coach, they all like literally it's like Monken just like took over their brains and took over their mouths, and they're all speaking the same language. They're all saying the same stuff, which you guys know as Army leaders and business leaders. I mean, how important that is that everybody's on the same page. So, John, why don't you talk to that aspect of Army football a little bit and what you've seen in the culture change really over the past 9 years?
Well, that's really been an important part of the team. They talk about toughness and humility, and they're a very tough football team. There's no doubt about that. I think coach has actually backed off a little bit after that first year from some of the toughness in the practices. As he
realized. Yeah, that's what the guys were saying. They were saying physically it's gotten easier. The standards and attention to detail haven't, but he just couldn't continue to pound guys into oblivion like that.
One of the things the coach says that I really like, he says the tougher team wins.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know he believes that. And I also know that his team believes that. And they come out there and, they usually win, and they usually are the tougher team.
Yeah.
And they've just completely bought into that. I think you can underestimate how difficult it really is to change the culture like that. It's easy to say, well, we got to come in and we got to change the culture and we got to build a culture of toughness. It's a different thing to actually do it, right? Because you're trying to convince people of something they haven't seen, right? And haven't experienced, right? All those years straight of losing to Navy, right? And so I just think that that's one of the most amazing coaching turnarounds and program turnarounds that college football has seen, maybe in the last 30 or 40 years. And you see the intensity of Coach Monken. It's always up there. I don't know when he ever rests. And I
his
think
motor is unbelievable. And I mean, Monte mentioned it, if we could, build a statue I can't think of a better fit for Army football in the academy. He really gets it. He was in a presser recently. I forget whether I asked him the question or somebody else did. I don't even remember the question, but he was talking about, I think it was around John Radigan and some of the NFL guys. And, he was super professional with his answer and talked about how proud he is of those guys. But then turned it right around and talked about how he's equally proud of all the guys who've come out and graduated Rangers. Brent Davis said to me, not all of our offensive linemen have gone to Ranger school, but everyone who has graduated, which is super impressive. I mean, we know how hard Ranger school is.
It's hard. I'm a graduate, and it's harder for big men, frankly. They lose a lot more weight. The last thing I'll say about Coach Monken and his leadership change, the thing you notice about really good organizations is that they mirror the personality of the leader, and they take on the personality of the leader. And I think this team has been imbued with the personality of Coach Monken, and that has been, the secret sauce that is making everything else work. And we just can't give him enough credit for doing that. It was such a tough assignment, and he has executed it brilliantly.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't have said that any better. I mean, he picked this program literally up off the basement of college football and he's got him, banging on a door to top 25 every single year now. You look at some of the metrics we talked about as fans on the 12th night for what would measure success. 500 record against Army and Navy. He's got exactly that. And over the last 5 years, he's way better than 500. 8-9, we said like 8-9 wins a year. He's actually averaging the last 5 years closer to 9 to 10, and bowl wins. I mean, great bowl record, 4-1, I think, or something like that. I off the top of my head can't remember, but just impressive stuff across the board with everything he's done, really, in the last 8 years, from recruiting to developing players to staff retention, replacing staff members. I mean, I remember the days where, if we would lose a key guy, I remember when Josh Jenkins left it. It was like the end of the world. Now it's nobody, don't get me wrong, like, we don't want to lose Andre Carter this year, but if he got hurt or something, like, I feel like it would hurt us, but I feel like we could kind of figure it out, and because the depth is there and the talent development. When I talked to Nate Woody, I've never heard an Army coach talk about so many plebes as Nate Woody has. I mean, he was really, complimentary of this plebe class and what they're doing. So, we're about half an hour in now. So, talked a lot about the history of Army football and what Coach Monken's done in the last 8 years, which has been awesome. But let's get right down to it now and talk about the 2022 season, which is just around the corner. Opener at Coastal Carolina in, I believe, 17 days. If I'm wrong, don't make me do push-ups, sir. Didn't get the days right on that one till Army beats the hell out of Coastal in Conway, South Carolina. But really exciting opener against a super talented, really well-coached football team with Coastal. A lot of positive expectations for the 2022 season. Army lost a lot of talent, but they got a lot coming back as well. For one, I was actually saying this to my wife the other day after I heard Charles's post-game presser with Coach after the scrimmage Saturday. I don't want to jinx anybody, but I've never heard the staff this cautiously optimistic. We'll call them as they are this year. They really seem positive and upbeat about what the team can bring to the table. So, Monty, what are you most excited about for the 2022 season? What are you looking forward to seeing? And, what question marks do you have?
Well, first of all, I had the same observation as you, which is I've never heard Coach Monken this early on have such positive feedback about how things have gone. I mean, I've always, just every year, he's very begrudging to say that he feels pretty comfortable. And this is the first year ever, and I'm like, wow, we must have a good team because that is amazing. So I'm optimistic. I just look at our roster, and there's just so many players that are awesome on our team. But as Coach Monken is want to say, there's no football game in college that's really easy. They're all hard fought.
Yep.
Sometimes they're decided by a point or two. So you've got to fight to the very bitter end, and the tough team, it's got to win, and you've got to hold down your penalties and your giveaways, which I hope we have an opportunity to talk a little bit about some of the rule changes too. And
yeah, absolutely. You can, in fact, if you want, just feel free to get right into that if you want to go down that road. I thought Coach Davis was super honest and open with me about some of that stuff, so feel free to go down that road if you want to.
Yeah, it's where these rule changes often seem, in my opinion, they seem to hurt us more than a lot of the other teams. But I remember after the last time there was a major rule change, it just seemed like we were getting hit with 15-yard penalties all over the place, and it took quite a while for us to work through that. We don't see that so much anymore, but I'm wondering this season if we aren't going to see a similar, rough start because of those changes, some of those changes. But I guess it was Isaiah had mentioned in one of your interviews, he didn't see an issue with that because the way that he's not tackling below the waist anyway. So he didn't think it was going to be that big a deal, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's interesting you bring that up because I remember that season, and surprisingly enough, those rule changes where you couldn't go back to the ball and cut below the waist, right? That was the rule change, and it was actually 2018, and lo and behold, we won 11 games that year. So the coaching staff does a really good job adjusting. I think the fan base, I won't mention any names on the 12th night, but some of the fans who tend to get a little negative and excited a little too early might need to relax in the first couple of games. You probably are going to see some. I wouldn't be surprised if we get flagged 3 or 4 times a game early for blocks below the waist, just because you've got guys so used to doing it, and because it's a point of emphasis now too, the officials are going to be looking out for it. See, maybe in 2018, when that was a point of emphasis, they were looking out for it more than they are now in 2020, 2021. Right. And the players I really see it impacting the most are slot backs. I mean, when they run motion, when they run wheel motion and then come back to the line and get that quick arc block cut on the outside backer or the strong safety or whoever, I think that's the number one place it's got to change. And what Coach Davis said, I thought was really interesting. It's all under the guise of player safety. He said, no, what you're going to get is a lot more head-to-head collisions, and you're going to see concussions go through the roof. Which shows you how intelligent the people are who are making up these rules.
Right.
John, any thoughts on that?
Well, as far as the rule change, we'll see what happens. I think it is really targeting the type of football we play. I think if you're a big program that's got bigger, faster players, you don't like losing to Army or Air Force or anybody else that's running this offense. And so you're tweaking with the rule book, right? And that's been going on for a couple of years now. They keep searching for, the rule change. It's gonna crush us, and I don't think they're gonna find one. So I'm hoping that we adjust and adapt and overcome. But then in terms of like the things that I'm looking forward to this year and then concerns I have, I was really happy to hear Coach talk about how pleased he was with the amount of depth we're developing on the O-line. And it seemed like he felt like maybe it was the strongest there that we possibly had ever been. And we've had some really good offensive linemen in the last 4 years. So I think that's amazing and great, because that is a very difficult position for us to build starters at, right? We have a lot of people listed on O-line, but we don't have a lot of people who can start all the time at O-line. So I think that's a real great positive. I'm really pleased and excited and proud of all of these players we have coming out on these watch lists. I mean, that's just incredible, right? Compared to where we were 8 years ago or so, or 9 years ago. Yeah. And I mean, Outland Trophy, Bedarnik, Ward, lots of others. I mean, it just shows you not only the quality of the recruiting, but the quality of the player development. And also, you don't get on those watch lists if you're not on winning teams, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's a huge thing that really
you
makes
don't
me
see a
happy.
lot of UConn or UMass guys on the watch list typically.
Yeah, exactly. Now, concerns I have about the season, I would say on offense, I don't know a lot of the names at fullback behind the names we're used to. We know Jacoby Buchanan, we know Tyson Riley, and then after that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, Coach Davis had the exact same concern you do. So he's, if we hold true to the winning pattern at fullback the last 5 years, we got to find at least one, if not two more guys who can be part of the rotation.
Right. So I'm looking forward to seeing some players emerge there, because I think we're going to need more than the two names I just mentioned. And then on the defense, we were so strong last year in the center of the field with Nolan Cockrell and Eric Smith. Eric was a 3-year starter, and Nolan was just, incredible holding the point there in the middle of the field. So I feel more confident about our ability to replace inside linebackers. But I think D-line, even though we're running a 3-4, that's another place, just like on O-line, where it's really hard for us to find guys that start. I know we have some names there, and I'm very hopeful. Probably, we'll just reload and we'll be fine, but I just don't know who those names are going to be yet. I feel super comfortable about the back 4, back 5. I think those are going to be great.
Yep. No, I completely agree with you. I think, it's not going to be maybe one guy as good as Cockrell at nose, but I think Coach Woody's got two or three guys he can rotate in there and do some different things. He's really excited about his DEs. I know he's big on Austin Hill. I think Isaiah Felici's another name I've heard thrown around a lot. Of course, Bonzu's back for a fifth year, so that's exciting. Good veteran there. So I think, just like the O-line, I think the D-line's starting to develop more depth, which means fresh legs, which is going to be important in the fourth quarter. So absolutely agree with you on that whole analysis. And I think the O-line's really going to surprise some people. I think we lost a little bit of talent there, but Connor Bishop is the best center we've probably had since Bryce Holland. In fact, Coach Davis was kidding around with him. He said, Connor, the last time we had a captain who was the center, we won 11 games, so no pressure. I thought that was cool. So he does a great job. Connor Finucane and Booby Law are both really, really strong. And then it's just a matter of the other guys rotating on in. I think Davis said Finucane had gotten up over the 300 mark now. So he's put on some bulk, which is nice. Josh Lingenfelter at tight end, I think, is going to add a lot offensively, both from a pass catching and blocking standpoint. And then, you've got the multi QB system. I think from everything I've heard, you're going to see a lot of Cade Ballard and a lot of Tyler. And maybe a little bit of Jamel Jones. And if one of those two guys goes down at the front, I think you're going to see even more Jamel Jones. And Coach Monken Saturday said he'd be very comfortable with any one of those three guys running his entire offense. So, I think Tyler improving his passing game, getting out on the perimeter a little bit, is probably, putting them in the right situations to do that. I think will be helpful for sure. So, let's talk about that opener down at Coastal. Pretty exciting. It might be the toughest team on the schedule, to be honest with you. So Monty, what are you expecting to see in that game? You don't necessarily have to give me a prediction. I'll save that for the 12th night. I think John usually puts out the prediction threads on the 12th night, if I'm not mistaken. So don't have to spoiler alert it, but what are you expecting out of that opener with Coastal?
Well, I think Coastal, they average over 500 yards of offense, if I remember right. So I'm expecting a very high scoring game. And it'll be less high scoring than they're accustomed to probably playing us, but it's still going to be high scoring in my opinion. And I think we're going to have to score too. It's going to be tough, a very tough game for us. It's not a game that we can't win. We can definitely win, but it's going to require us to play extremely well and to contain them.
Yeah. How about you, John?
Well, I will eventually be predicting an Army win in the opener.
Nice.
I think that we're going to surprise a lot of people. Coach Monken has a really good record at Army in opening games.
Yes, he does.
We usually win. I think the last opening game loss might have been Duke
in 2018. Yep.
Yeah. So I think we've won openers after that. And the trend I see is that we're really well prepared because we're really well coached, dialed in. So we do well early. Last year, we thought Georgia State was going to be a challenging game. Road dog, and we destroyed them, even with some early challenges. So that's my default expectation, is that we'll win. McCall is a great quarterback. He's lost some of his best receivers, but I think it's easier to reload receivers than reload quarterback.
True.
So I think they will have a potent offense. But I like our defense and I like our secondary. I like the way we bend and don't break. And as long as we can execute our offense and keep their offense off the field, I think we have a great opportunity to win that game. And I think Army will win.
Nice. Good stuff. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I'm a little concerned defensively because even though it's a different scheme, I remember what Sam Hartman and Wake did to us last year, obviously. And there are enough similarities between the two offenses that I'm a little concerned if we haven't figured out what went wrong that day, that we could see a repeat of it. And I think we have. From talking to Coach Woody, he mentioned it real quickly, but he said with the secondary, we're focused on not giving up the big play. He said we got beat deep way too many times last year. And in the Wake game, it was like one after, I mean, it was just nonstop. So I think the offense can move the ball for sure against Coastal. And, so I think it's going to be interesting. I think we got to play Army football, right? I hate to sound super generic, but definitely no turnovers. We can't give them an extra possession.
Right.
And if we go no turnovers and play Army football and keep the ball on the ground, keep McCall and his receivers on the sideline, I agree with you, John. I think, Georgia State last year, a lot of us thought was going to be a toss-up, and they just came down here and beat the snot out of them. So, I don't know. I think Jamie Chadwell's a great coach. I think Coastal will be very well prepared. I've heard Grayson McCall's been kept out of a few practices due to some, I think he had a shoulder or some kind of arm surgery in the offseason. Chadwell said he'll be 100% by the opener for sure. So there's that, but I think, their first time facing us, the Sun Belt, Georgia Southern they sort of run option. I get that Coastal runs option, but we run a different brand of option football. And I don't know if Coastal's front seven are prepared for the physical beating that they're going to get. That's always what it comes down to. Like, when the guys, it's going to probably be 90, 95 degrees when the guys start making business decisions on defense, when they haven't played Army before. So I think it's going to be a real interesting game. I think personally, if Army wins that one, this season could be as special as what some people are talking about. Staying healthy, obviously critical to Army success across the board. If, we start losing 3 or 4 starting offensive linemen, specifically Connor Bishop, it hurts our offense. Last year, I noticed a significant difference when Bishop played versus when he was hurt. Major difference. And so those guys got to stay healthy. I think that's important to a successful season. Obviously some key guys on defense. Like I said, if we lost an Andre Carter or Marquell Broughton, it would have a pretty major impact. Spencer Jones is a name we've heard a lot at linebacker, who we've just been waiting to get healthy. But Coach Woody said he's really healthy, ready to go right now. So that's good stuff. So yeah. What other, let's see, we're kind of wrapping it up now. What else about the 2022 season? What do you guys think about the Commander and Chiefs games? Let me ask you that. The Air Force game again at the neutral site in Arlington, Texas, and then the Navy game in Philadelphia. Monty, what are you looking forward to out of the CIC games? How do you think we stack up against the other 2 academies, from what you've heard so far in the offseason?
So I think Air Force is going to be tougher than Navy. I feel very good about us beating Navy, and I'm excited to beat Navy again. Air Force is going to be tough.
Yep.
They're super tough, and it's weird. It's just that's a terrible loss when you lose to Air Force. Last year was amazing. I have to say, I was just there's so many Army games like that where I'm just dumbfounded with how we remain tough, and we create turnovers, and we pull off what we need to win. And that was an example of that game. And it just, you couldn't have, there was no better way to spend my money than watching the Air Force game last year. And I'm expecting another fight out, this year as well, but I'm hopeful that we can beat both of them. It feels great winning the Commander in Chief's trophy. That's another accolade for Coach Monk, and it's just shocking when you look at, since the inception of CIC, how few times we won that thing relative to Air Force and Navy. And we really started to build our W column under Coach Monk, and it's like amazing. So I want to see that remain.
I'm probably wrong, but it feels like we've won as many CICs under Coach Monken as we won in all the years prior to that.
I think so. I think you're right.
So how about it, John? What do you think about the Air Force and Navy games this year?
I think those are the two hardest games we play every year, regardless of whoever else we're playing. Those are just challenging in other dimensions that are unlike the other teams we play. I know that we're hurt and upset about losing to Navy last year, and I just hope we're not looking past Air Force. I think Air Force has the potential to be the best team we play this season. They could be a ranked team when we play them this season. They have a lot of people coming back. They do have to reload somewhat on defense, but their offense is really potent. And, you know, none of us really like the guy, Troy Calhoun, but you have to say he is a tremendous college football coach.
Absolutely.
He has achieved great success there. You know, we beat a Power 5 team in our bowl game, but they beat one too. They beat Louisville, right? And they have a lot coming back. They know us so well. I think that game is going to be a dogfight and really, really hard to beat them a second time in that stadium. So that's the one I'm circling on my calendar.
Yeah, it's I mean, it seems like that game always, not that Navy doesn't, but that game always comes down to one score. It seems like every single, I mean, since we shut them out in 2017 at their place, which was just crazy. That may have been that was up there with breaking the streak. That may have been my favorite Army game I've ever seen.
I was at that game.
Oh, were you?
It was incredible. It was amazing. I was sitting surrounded by Air Force fans. And they just could not believe Ahmad Bradshaw was like running 7 yards every time he touched the ball.
That was crazy. It was literally like
shotgun. We didn't pass that game, right?
Yeah, no, we didn't. Yeah,
we did not.
Yeah.
That was it was all Bradshaw. Like
Bradshaw had like over 200 yards.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think we'd ever blank them either, right?
It had been a while.
It was. I mean, we hardly ever win there.
Yeah,
that is a very hard place.
Very hard place to play.
Altitude makes it really tough.
Yep.
Yeah. So we have a chance in Dallas, or Irving or wherever it is. But you know, I think that's our toughest opponent of the season. Even with
I can see that definitely. I mean, I think it's going to be a super close game. I do agree with your assessment that I feel like them losing their DC and losing some talent on defense, maybe we'll be able to move the ball a little better. You know, we've had some success against them the last couple of years, moving it through the air, which has been nice. You know, offensively though, yeah, they're loaded. Hazik Daniels is back. Roberts is back. I mean, they've got all their talent and they've got some really high quality skill players at Air Force. And their offensive line's good too. They just obviously don't get the credit, but.
And they play in a good conference. That Mountain West Conference has really been the best Group of 5 conference the last couple of years, and they've had a great record out there.
I agree with you, John. It's funny. The Navy fans will all just go crazy about the American Athletic Conference, the Power 6. Well, I'm like, the Mountain West is way better than the American from top to bottom. Like, I don't like UCF gets all this cred for the American Athletic Conference. And then there's all these other teams that are great offensively, but they don't play defense. And then you look at, if you look at Army's record against the American Athletic Conference over the last 5 or 6 years, we're pretty dominant. Like, we've only the 2 losses to Navy. Other than that, I can't think of many games. Like, we beat Temple multiple times. Like,
Tulane has been the team we couldn't beat.
Tulane's that's like, I never want to see Tulane on Army's schedule ever again. Like, it doesn't matter how bad they are. We just can't seem to beat them. I don't know what the deal is with that. I don't know why Willie Fritz is the one guy in the world who can outcoach Jeff Monken.
Yeah, he has so far.
Yeah.
It's super weird. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to both games. I'm looking forward to, I mean, like you said, I don't want to look past Air Force, because if you lose to Air Force and beat Navy, it's good. I guess we retain the CIC at that. Well, unless Air Force, if Air Force beats both of us, they win it, I guess.
Yeah.
But you don't want to do that. So you gotta, and I don't think our kids will look past Air Force. I mean, there's no way. I mean, there's no way Monken's gonna be like, let's. But I have noticed every time. I mean, that it's come up. Winning the CIC is a major goal of the team and of the captains this year for sure, and the leadership. So you obviously got to win both games to do that. I think Navy left a particularly nasty taste in our mouths last year because I think everybody watching knew Army was the better team, and we just didn't play our A game, got outplayed and outcoached to some degree. And we had, you know what else? We had some injuries that, like, it's funny. I say this, the one thing I probably learned from being an analyst and a writer with GoBlackKnights.com is I get some access to the coaches, and Charles does as well, obviously. And you get injury reports that no one else, that they're not going to release to the general public. And you're like, okay, that now I understand why this player looked like this and this, like, it's, you start putting the pieces together and you go, all right, it makes a lot of sense. So something I really learned from talking with Coach Davis and Coach Woody around that was guys who had lingering injuries and long-term injuries. And I didn't realize Tyler had a staph infection at one point in his career and was out for a while with that, and all kinds of stuff. So, I think not only us, but the players just want to beat Navy so bad this year because they're just like, they literally can't believe they lost. It's going to be interesting. Go ahead, Monty.
No, we shouldn't have lost that game.
Yeah.
We really shouldn't have. And if we're bringing back a team that's as good or better as last year, we're not going to lose. We're going to win. We're going to beat Navy this year. I really feel positive about that.
Yeah.
Versus, I'm always nervous about Air Force, but Navy.
Yeah, they're a tough win, right? And they dominated us for so long, like John said, especially in Colorado Springs. I mean, 2017 is one of the few years we've ever won in Colorado Springs.
Right. And
personal opinion is we won in 2019 too, and they robbed Jabari Laws on the goal line, but that's a whole different time.
Well, I really enjoyed the Missouri Bowl. We played Missouri in the bowl game. That was the best. Again, last second of the game, we won that game. It was another amazing Army win, and I'm looking forward to another bowl game this year. I feel like we'll be going to another bowl game, and we've shown that we're very tough in bowl games. So.
Yeah, that win over the Power 5 team was huge, and not something we see a lot of at Army. But it kind of shuts up the people who want to talk about our schedule all the time. And when you look at what we've been able to do in the bowl games over the course of multiple seasons, that's been pretty impressive as well. John, talk a little bit about that. What do you see from us maybe for a bowl? I know you're pretty good at following some of this stuff. Where do some of maybe the early season ESPN guys, whatever, have you seen anything about where they maybe have us projected to go to a bowl game or whatever against a rando opponent?
Well, I believe we have a tie-in this year with the Independence Bowl.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that's in Louisiana.
Yep.
So it could be a bunch of different conferences. It could be a G5 opponent, or it could be a Power 5 opponent. But I have no idea who will play in a bowl. But right. I feel like we're going to meet the contract. We're going to get to our 6 wins, based on the demeanor of the coaches and my own evaluation of where the team is at. So, unless we have a fantastic season, my assumption is we'll be going to the Independence Bowl, and that's going to be on the 23rd of December.
Okay, good stuff. Pre-Christmas bowl, so it'll be interesting. All right, so along those lines, to wrap it up, give me, I didn't hold you to a prediction for Coastal, although John volunteered his, which I'm appreciative of. John, give me your season prediction, number of wins, how we do in the 2 CIC games, and including a bowl game if we win that or not.
I think including the bowl game, we'll have double-digit wins. Maybe we'll need the bowl game to get to that. But I think with the bowl game that we can get to 10 wins. I also feel like we have a chip on our shoulder about Navy, and the early reports I'm reading about Navy are, they are going to be somewhat like last year. So unless Coach Niumatalolo surprises us, I think they'll be beatable. and that we should beat them. So I think in terms of the CIC, it does really all come down to Air Force. It's a neutral field. So just like last year, we have a really good chance without, knowing how injured we'll be or anything like that. I would say that we should win the CIC. Most of the college football prognosticators think Air Force is going to win it this year. So we will surprise some people and it'll be challenging, but I predict we'll win the CIC and we'll have double-digit wins.
Yeah, before Monty goes, you said something that made me laugh. So but I know you're a big Phil Steele guy. You read a lot of his stuff, and he's got some good stuff out there. So, and he knows what he's talking about, unlike a lot of the other college football prognosticators who study, quote unquote, study Army. Yeah, I think your prediction's pretty good. It's always funny to me. I'm always amazed at the lack of research paid professional. I do this as a hobby. I'm always amazed at the lack of research paid professionals in this industry do on Army football when they say stuff. Everybody's freaking out because we lost Christian Anderson at quarter. And I'm like, he was a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong. CA was really good. I liked him a lot, but I'm like, we've been using Tyler won the starting job at the beginning of last year. We've been using him a lot the last couple of years. Cade Ballard is an absolute stud. Like came into UT. I mean, that's the UTSA game everybody's freaking out about. And I'm like, I'm not cocky about it, but I'm like, you know what? We've played them twice in the last 3 or 4 years. And to me, they've never shown any ability to slow down the triple option offense. I mean, we run roughshod over. So unless they have a new DC who's some triple option whiz kid, I don't see them being able to slow it down or stop it. And offensively, they've got some weapons. But I mean, you look at like last year, the Western Kentucky game, there were not many quarterbacks in America better than Bailey Zappi. And for 3.5, he went crazy in the fourth quarter. But for 3.5 quarters, I mean, they shut him down. Broughton picked him off twice. I mean, so yeah. Nate Woody's no slouch. He knows what he's doing. So, all right, Monty, how about it? Give me a season prediction.
I think it's going to be one of those seasons where there are going to be a lot of really close games, and it's going to come down to, are we healthy? Do we stay out of trouble? Do we not turn over the ball? Do we not have unnecessary penalties? And, it could be a double-digit season, or it could be, I think no matter what, we're going to a bowl game, but it could be single digits too. I'm hopeful that with a bowl win, we'll be double digits, as John was saying, but it's not an easy schedule. There's a lot of tough things on our schedule.
Yeah, it really is. And it's funny, I started to write my season preview article, which hopefully I'll have done by next weekend. So I'm not going to give you guys my predictions, but it'll all be in the article. But no, if you look at this schedule, it doesn't have the marquee name, right? Because Tennessee pulled out. So we don't have Wisconsin. We don't have, like next year we got LSU. We don't have Michigan. But you look at the schedule top to bottom, Coastal's really good. Conceivably, if we stumble out of the gate and get some key guys hurt, we could seriously be starting off the season 0-3 or 0-4 before we see a W.
Right.
And even then, it's not like I wouldn't fold up the tent and be like, oh, this is going to be an awful season. I mean, they could still have a winning season, and I think it'd be disappointing, but the beginning of the schedule is so front loaded, and then in the middle you've got Wake Forest at Wake, which is I think, in my opinion, John, you say Air Force might be the toughest game. I'm not saying they're not going to be. I think they're right there, but Wake at Wake and Coastal at Coastal to me are the top two, with Air Force right there, just because no matter who wins the Air Force game, it'll be less than a 7-point margin of victory. I can almost assure that. So it'll be the team that makes the least mistakes probably. So anything you guys want to say in closing before we wrap it up?
I'll just say that, like we said earlier, I think that the demeanor and attitude of the coaches is very interesting this year. Coach Monken normally is talking about how we're way behind where he wants to be, and we're not hearing that this year.
Right.
And so it's the absence of that. It's not the things he's saying, it's the things that he's not saying. They're giving me a lot of hope about how the coaches feel about this team. And they know this team better than any of us right now. So I'm using that as my indicator to say that, we could be in for another really good season. But again, like Monty said, the intangibles have to go our ways: turnovers, injuries, and, the one or two plays that will make a difference in the close games. But if those can go our way or at least break even, it's going to be a very, very good year.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Monty, anything to say before we wrap it up?
I'm excited. Let's get it going. I gonna be at every Mikey game this year, and maybe, and really looking forward to it. I will say that we as Army fans are very baby now, and if we have less than 10 wins, we're very disappointed.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, no, what's funny is the way the expectations have changed.
Yeah.
And I used to kind of think that was a negative, but I think it's really a positive, actually. Like, you look at the programs like Clemson and Bama and where I live down here in Georgia. I mean, national championship is the standard. Yeah. And if they don't get it, they're not. And I get that that's not realistic. Like, I completely understand that. Maybe at Bama it is, but nowhere else.
Yeah.
But I think it's pretty cool, actually, that Monken and his staff have changed the expectations so much that the expectations are now win the CIC and win 10 games or the season was a failure. Like, I'm not saying people should feel that, like, right. I'm not getting into all the intangibles about, like, oh, it doesn't mean they're bad, like, none of that, but just like as a football fan.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's good that our expectations are that stinking crazy high now. Like,
yeah, just as all the football players believe they can win every game, truly believe they can win every game, no matter if we're playing Oklahoma or Michigan or whomever, the fans have drunk that Kool-Aid too. We also
it's kind of cool.
We're aligned.
It beats the heck out of, I hope we can win this one AA game. I hope we beat Yale next week.
Right.
So, hey guys, thanks a ton for your time. We really appreciate it. I know you guys are super busy, just like all of us are, but excited to get on here and talk Army football with you. Thanks for coming on the show, and Army fans, get excited. We are a little over 2 weeks away from the Coastal Carolina game. So we got a lot of good stuff coming out on GoBlackKnights.com. My partner in crime, Gordon Larson, is cranking out his breakout series, highlighting some of the best players in the 2022 season. And Charles Grievous will have a lot of good interviews, as will I, between now and the season opener. I've got a potential interview on deck with one of our former players who's now in the NFL. Won't mention which one, but that could be coming up. So we're excited about that. And go Army, beat Navy, and beat Coastal.
All right. Thank you.